In fact, we are all misguided. We often hear that the Type 055 missile destroyer has 112 vertical launch cells. And this number is indeed correct, but those so-called vertical launch units are not really vertical. Have you ever thought about a problem? That is, in fact, the ship's vertical hair will also have a dud or even jam failure. To understand the principle of missile launch in a nutshell, it is actually very similar to a pistol fire, but the pistol jammed. And at best, it couldn't shoot, and if there is a jam in the pendulum, what will be the consequences? In fact, what we are worried about has long been considered by military personnel. We often say that the vertical launch system of the Type 055 missile destroyer is very advanced, using the technology of 4 bombs in one pit and hot and cold co-frame. Not to mention the pit and 4 bombs in the front. The cold and hot co-frame technology in the back is actually closely related to the missile launch failure. Here we need to know that there are 2 types of shipborne missile launches: hot launch and cold launch. The so-called thermal launch means that the missile is ignited in the vertical launch unit when launched, and then the powerful thrust generated by the engine is used to shoot out the launch tube, and then attack the target. The vertical hair unit itself does not provide power, but ventilation devices are installed to exhaust the flame and air. In addition, the materials of the missile's body and vertical launch unit need to be specially treated to resist the high-temperature tail flame generated by the missile launch. The disadvantages of thermal launch are very obvious. If the launch system of the missile fails, and the vertical hair itself does not provide power, then there will be a jamming phenomenon. Then, if you don't solve the problem in time, it can cause the vertical hair unit to explode in severe cases. And you know how terrible that is as a result. Another kind of cold emission based on thermal emission and improved came into being. Cold launch refers to the installation of other thrust systems inside the vertical launch system. The more common is a high-pressure air device, which uses air impulse to eject the missile out of the vertical launch first, then ignite the engine to drive the missile attack. The benefits of a cold launch are numerous, because the engine is ignited after the missile leaves the vertical launch system, which means that the vertical launch unit does not need to withstand the high-temperature tail flame of the missile launch, so its service life will be extended accordingly. The missile body does not need to change the aerodynamic shape too much, which ensures the original flight performance at the same time. In terms of safety performance, even if the power system of the missile itself fails, there will be no jamming or even explosion. However, it is worth mentioning that after the missile is lifted into the air, the engine fails and ignition fails, which is what we call the phenomenon of duds. And it may also smash back into the ship and cause reverse damage. Such an accident occurred on a French frigate in 2018, when a missile that failed to fire exploded on the deck, injuring 2 soldiers. Generally speaking, the main factors affecting the smashing of a dud bomb back into a ship are the speed of the missile's displacement, the inclination angle of the decanter, and the wind speed in the air. In a war environment, you also need to consider the various maneuvers that the ship may make, such as steering and the shaking and swinging caused by the wind and waves at sea. The vertical launch unit that we always thought was not really vertical in order to ensure the safety of the ship. The military scientific research personnel tilted the vertical launch axis to the outboard at a certain angle, so that the cold-launched missile can break away from the ship at a certain angle. Even if the ignition fails, there is a high chance of falling into the sea without smashing back into the ship and dealing reverse damage.